Caught on camera, the crime that exposed a dark secret community. Before we dive in, if you're brave enough to enter the shadows with us, hit subscribe, tap like, and leave a comment. Trust me, after this case, you'll never look at your neighbors the same way again. The footage began at 2:13 a.m. A shaky, grainy clip from a motion-activated street camera in a quiet New England town. Snow drifted through the frame as a lone figure stumbled into the light, clutching their side like they were holding in something terrible. They looked back once, then collapsed face down in the road. By sunrise, the entire town of Ridgewell Falls was awake. Police tape fluttered like warning flags in the cold wind, and officers moved with a tense urgency that told onlookers this was no accident. The victim, later identified as Elias Mercer, a 28-year-old researcher at a local tech company, showed signs of blunt force trauma and deep lacerations inconsistent with a simple fall. What confused investigators most was his final direction of travel. He'd come from Harrowwood Lane, a long, isolated road that locals avoided after dark. Detective Laura Kinley, a seasoned investigator known for seeing patterns others missed, arrived on scene before dawn. She crouched beside Elias's body, studying his coat. Torn, stained, and along the hem, small particles of something metallic and dusty, like fragments of old machinery. "Someone chased him," she murmured. A rookie officer asked, "From where?" "There's nothing on Harrowwood except that old community property." Laura didn't answer. She knew exactly what the officer meant. The Harrowwood Collective, a quiet, self-sustained community founded decades ago by families who value privacy above all else. Too much privacy, some said. No one was allowed past the front gate unless invited, and the members rarely stepped into town except for supplies. They were polite, reserved, uncomfortably unified, and above all, they never talked to outsiders. But the victim's final moments pointed straight toward their land. By mid-morning, Laura drove up the narrow path leading into the Harrowwood estate. Towering pines crowded the road, swallowing daylight. A heavy iron gate greeted her, engraved with a symbol she'd only seen in old case files, a circle divided into 4 sections, like a seal for some forgotten institution. A man stepped out from the guardpost, tall, clean-shaven, wearing a charcoal coat. His smile was polite, but his eyes were unreadable. "Detective, we heard what happened. Terrible tragedy. Did you know Elias Mercer?" Laura asked. "We know many people in town," the man replied smoothly, "but not all by name." She noticed his deliberate avoidance, the careful way he spoke without actually answering the question. "I'll need access to your property." "I'm afraid that's not possible," he said, still smiling. "Our community has strict privacy protocols. Surely you understand." Before she could argue, another figure approached, a woman in her 50s with silver hair pulled into a tight knot. She exuded authority. "I'm Marion Hale, elected spokesperson for Harrowwood. Detective, if you have questions, we'll answer what we can. But entering our grounds? That won't be allowed without a warrant." Laura's jaw tightened. "Then expect one." As she turned to leave, she noticed something. Perched along the fence line were small mounted devices. At first glance they looked like cameras, but the lenses were different, rounder, wider, almost military in design. And there were dozens of them. Why would a peaceful community need surveillance tech like that? Back at the station, the medical report came in. Elias had traces of iron oxide under his nails, rust, and on his clothes. Dust from an old ventilation system, the kind used decades ago in industrial facilities. But Ridgewell Falls had no such facilities anymore, except one. Hidden deep within Harrowwood's land sat the abandoned Ridge Steel Plant, a factory closed 22 years earlier after structural collapse. The town had labeled it too dangerous to restore. But the land had been purchased soon after, by the Collective. Laura pulled up the map. Why would a community need a decaying steel plant? Before she could think further, a technician called from the evidence room. "Detective, you need to see this." He handed her a USB drive found in Elias's jacket. "It was hidden behind the lining," he said, almost like he didn't want anyone to find it. "Except maybe you." Laura plugged it in. A single video file appeared. The screen flickered. Then the image stabilized. It showed a dark underground room, concrete walls, dim lights, rusted metal beams. In the center stood a group of people wearing simple work clothes, their faces mostly obscured. One by one, they placed their hands on a strange metal device, part machine, part container, humming faintly, as if participating in some kind of ritual. Not religious, not symbolic, something else. The audio crackled. A voice whispered from behind the camera, breathless with fear. They are not who they claim to be. If anything happens to me, tell them. The video abruptly cut to static. Laura stayed at the screen. The timestamp on the file was 2 hours before Elias died. Her pulse quickened. The abandoned steel plant wasn't abandoned, and Elias had found something he was never meant to see. Just as she reached for the phone to alert her team, another notification appeared on the screen. A system alarm triggered by the body cam of the officer monitoring the street where Elias collapsed. Someone had returned to the scene. Laura opened the live feed. A figure stood at the center of the crime scene tape, staring straight into the camera, expressionless, motionless, like they'd been waiting for someone to notice. Then slowly, deliberately, they raised their hand. In their palm was a small metallic object, the same symbol from the Harrowwood gate burned into its surface. And underneath it, smeared in snow, a fresh trail of footprints leading straight back to the woods. Caught on camera, the crime that exposed a dark secret community. The live feed froze on the mysterious figure's face, pale, rigid, unblinking. Detective Laura Kinley felt a chill slide up her spine, the kind that whispered you're being watched back. She grabbed her coat, heart thudding with urgency. Whoever this person was, they had returned to the crime scene with intent. People like that didn't revisit their work unless they wanted to send a message or retrieve something unfinished. By the time she reached Harrowwood's outskirts, the figure was gone. Only the footprints remained, vanishing into a wall of trees. Officers combed the woods, but the trail split in 3 directions, deliberate, confusing, like someone had rehearsed a route. Laura crouched beside one fork in the path, brushing her gloved hand over the prints. "These are too clean," she muttered, almost staged. Her partner, Detective Ryan Hale, no relation to Marion Hale, the collective, approached with a clipboard. "We found the object he left." He held up a sealed evidence bag containing the metallic token. Symbol matches a Harrowwood insignia, but the edges are odd, like it's cut from a machine panel. Laura frowned. Not handmade. Not even close. Industrial precision. Industrial, like a steel plant. Back at the station, her frustration grew. Harrowwood continued to deny access. The warrant request was slow. Too slow. Every hour felt like another page being ripped away from Elias's story. She watched the hidden footage again. Elias whispering behind the camera, the strange machine glowing faintly as members gathered around it. Their faces were obscured, but one detail stuck out. Every person carried a woven wristband, identical in design. Thick, dark, with the Harrowwood symbol stitched into the side. Ryan walked in, holding printouts. "We might have something." Cross-check residents with old employment records. Turns out, half the founding members worked at the Ridge Steel Plant before it closed. "What about the collapse?" Laura asked. "Any survivors?" "Only 3 documented. All current Harrowwood leaders." The room fell silent. So the people denying entry were the same people who supposedly escaped the deadly accident that shut down the facility. And Laura hated herself for thinking it, the same people who might have helped cover it up. Ryan continued. Eyewitnesses back then reported strange experiments taking place in plant. But the case files were sealed. Sealed by who? Laura asked. He tapped the final page. Local council. But guess who was on that council 22 years ago? Laura scanned the document, and her breath caught. Marion Hale, the woman who had smiled so calmly at the gate. A knock sounded on the office door. A junior officer stepped inside, face pale. "Detective, you need to see this. It's about Elias." She followed him to the tech room, where analysts were replaying new footage from the traffic cameras placed near Harrowwood. At first it looked like ordinary night surveillance, empty roads, drifting snow, the faint outline of trees. But then, at 1:58 a.m., a van rolled out of Harrowwood's private road. No plates, dark windows, and the driver, A man wearing the same woven wristband seen in Elias's video. Zoom in, Laura ordered. The camera enhanced the image just enough to make out the driver's profile. Strong jawline, thick beard, focused eyes. Ryan whispered, "That's Jonas Reed, former steel plant supervisor, listed as missing for 8 years." Missing or hiding? Laura asked. The footage continued. The van stopped by a ditch halfway down the road. 2 people got out, carrying something heavy wrapped in a tarp. They loaded it into the back, climbed inside, and drove off. Where did it go? Laura asked. Traffic cameras lost it at the county line, the tech replied, almost like it knew exactly where the dead zones were. Laura's pulse quickened. Elias hadn't stumbled onto a simple hidden meeting. He'd witnessed something organized, coordinated, something involving people the town believed were dead or missing. She felt a sudden pressure in her chest, the instinctual fear that rises when danger moves closer than you expected. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Detective Kinley. A male voice crackled through the speaker. Low, controlled, familiar. Stop digging. She froze. Who is this? You're looking in places that were sealed for a reason. Tell me your name. You already know it. Laura narrowed her eyes. The voice had a rasp, like someone who'd spent years around machinery. Jonas Reed. You left something behind, she said. A sharp pause. Then, we're trying to protect people, including you. Static swallowed the last word. The call ended. Ryan stared at her. Was that? Yes. She replayed the call in her mind. Jonas wasn't threatening her. Not directly. He almost sounded regretful, like someone forced into doing something they didn't agree with fully. But protect her from what? Before she could answer, an officer rushed in. Detectives, we got the warrant. Laura grabbed her keys. We're going in. Harrowwood wasn't prepared for the full police convoy rolling toward their gates. Marion Hale stood waiting, face carefully composed. Detective Kinley, this is unnecessary. We'll see. The gates opened slowly, creaking like something ancient waking from sleep. Inside, Harrowwood was beautiful, too beautiful. Perfectly aligned homes, clean stone pods, families moving quietly between buildings, all wearing the same woven wristbands. Every head turned to watch the officers pass. Laura led her team straight toward the old steel plant entrance. The building towered like a rusted giant, its outer shell decayed, windows shattered, roof partially collapsed. But then she saw it. Fresh tire tracks, recently replaced locks, and faint traces of warm air leaking from a ventilation pipe that should have been dead for decades. Ryan pointed at the concrete floor. Footprints. Multiple sets. Laura's heart hammered. They pulled open the side door. A gust of warm, metallic air hit them, and beneath it, the distant hum of machinery. But the hall was dark, far too dark, until, one by one, overhead lights flickered on, revealing the truth. The plant wasn't abandoned at all. It was fully operational, and every member of Harrowwood was standing inside waiting for them. Caught on camera, the crime that exposed a dark secret community. The overhead light snapped on with a harsh metallic buzz, illuminating the vast interior of the steel plant. Detective Laura Kinley froze mid-step. Dozens of Harrowwood members stood in perfect rows, men, women, even teenagers, each wearing identical woven wristbands. Their expressions were eerily calm, as if they'd been expecting this moment. Marion Hale stepped forward from the crowd, her silver hair gleaming under the industrial lights. Detective Kinley, she said softly, I warned you this was unnecessary. Laura lifted her badge. Step aside. Everyone here is subject to search and detainment until we know exactly what's been happening in this facility. Marion didn't flinch. Instead, she nodded toward the far end of the plant, where the old heavy-duty machinery loomed like sleeping giants. If you're going to accuse us, Marion said, you should at least understand what you're accusing us of. The crowd parted, and there, standing near a massive steel chamber glowing faintly from within, was Jonas Reed. Still alive, still wearing the same wristband. But his expression was not aggressive. It was regretful, exhausted, like a man who had carried a secret too heavy for too long. "Detective," Jonas said quietly, "I called you because you needed to hear the truth from me, not from rumors, not from Elias's footage, and not from assumptions." Laura tightened her grip on her weapon. "You were seen transporting something, or someone, out of here the night Elias died. Start talking." Jonas didn't move toward her. He simply gestured to the glowing steel chamber. Inside was a complex arrangement of copper coils, vents, cooling tubes, and reinforced plates, a machine that looked half industrial, half medical, with its cables running into the old ventilation system. It buzzed like a heart trying to beat after years of forced silence. "We call it the Phoenix Unit," Jonas said. "It was built years before the plant collapsed." Ryan frowned. "What does it do?" Marion stepped in. "It treats heavy metal poisoning, industrial lung disease, radiation exposure, conditions common among plant workers back then. It saved lives. It saved our families." Laura shook her head. "The collapse file said the plant was decommissioned because of severe structural risk." "You've only read the public version," Marion replied. "The truth is, when the council discovered what the plant was really being used for, they shut it down, not because it was unsafe, but because continuing it would expose them." "Expose them to what?" Laura demanded. Marion exhaled slowly. "Illegal dumping, corruption, disappearing funds meant for worker protection. They buried everything, closed the plant, threatened anyone who questioned it." Jonas added, "We rebuilt Harrowwood to protect the families who were left sick, abandoned, and voiceless. We kept the treatment equipment running. We kept each other alive." Laura tried to process the information. "So what does Elias have to do with any of this?" Jonas's face tightened. "Elias found our system by accident. He wasn't spying on us. He was researching energy-efficient filtration methods for his job. His tests led him to old sewer lines that feed into our ventilation system. He thought he discovered illegal activity, chemical waste, possibly human trafficking. And he panicked. He recorded everything without knowing what he was seeing." Ryan stepped forward. "Then why did he run? Why was he injured?" Marion looked pained. "He confronted one of our members. The man tried to restrain him so we could explain. But Elias fought back, terrified, convinced we were a cult or trafficking ring. He fled into the woods. Jonas tried to stop him from hurting himself." Jonas's voice cracked slightly. "He tripped on a rusted support beam. Hit his head. I tried to help him. But he kept running, bleeding, slipping away. We never meant for him to die." Laura wanted to believe them, but evidence didn't lie. The secret meetings, the vanished workers, the hidden footage. "No," she said firmly. "There's still more you're not telling us." Elias whispered something on his recording. He said, "They are not who they claim to be." What did he mean? A heavy silence fell. Then Marion stepped aside. Behind her stood a young woman, maybe 23, trembling but determined. She pulled off her wristband and lifted her sleeve, revealing scars, deep, parallel lines crossing her forearm. Laura's stomach twisted. Not self-inflicted. Surgical. "These," the young woman whispered, "were from the experimental treatments years ago. When the plant collapsed, some of us were children inside. They used the Phoenix Unit to stabilize us after exposure. We lived, but differently. Our immune systems don't function normally. Our lungs can't handle city air. We can't just leave Harrowwood." Jonas added, "We're not a secret society. We're survivors of a cover-up the council buried." Elias stumbled into a truth bigger than he understood. Ryan looked overwhelmed. "Then why hide everything? Why run the plant in secret?" "Because if the truth got out," Marion said, "the town would abandon us again. All Weiss, take our rights to control their narrative." Laura lowered her weapon, just a little. "So who was the figure who returned to the crime scene?" she asked. Jonas exchanged a broken look with Marion. "That was Elias's brother," Jonas said softly. "He came here looking for answers. We tried to talk to him. He panicked. He thought we killed Elias, and he wanted revenge." Laura felt her heart sink. "Where is he now?" Jonas hesitated. "He ran into the tunnels beneath the plant. And, detective, he took a weapon. Every officer in the room stiffened. Before Laura could issue an order, a sudden rumble echoed through the steel corridors. A door somewhere deep inside slammed open, followed by frantic footsteps. Then a trembling voice echoed through the plant speakers. "You didn't save him. You're all liars. And I'm ending this tonight." Laura's eyes widened. He had activated the old structural controls, the same ones that caused a collapse 2 decades ago. "Everyone out!" she shouted. Panic surged through the plant. Officers herded residents toward the exits. Pipes hissed. Metal groaned. Dust fell like ash. Laura and Ryan dashed toward the lower tunnels, determined to reach Elias's brother. But when they arrived, the passage was empty, except for a single wristband lying in the dirt. The alarm stopped. The groaning ceased. The building stabilized. He had vanished. Jonas whispered, "He's going to expose everything, but not the truth." Laura stared at the wristband. The symbol burned into her mind, because she knew one thing. A grieving man with a weapon and a story twisted by fear is more dangerous than 100 secrets. And 3 months later, when another person was found unconscious near the woods, clutching the same symbol Elias had died with, the town finally realized. The real threat hadn't been Harrowwood. It was a man still out there, watching, waiting, and planning his next move. If you thought this story was intense, you're nowhere near ready for the next one. Hit subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.